never slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be.
And I literally just freaking recorded like a 10-minute freaking video, and I just lost the entire first part of this, and it's like probably gonna be like a 3 or 4 parter, and I'm just like done. I got through the first page because there's so much freaking info on it, and it's literally all gone. I am so freaking stuck. But alright, so the notion for this video, you guys, is going to be immigration laws and regulations. I originally set it to be the international breakdown of it, but I also wanted to touch base upon the local regulations here in the US. So we're going to start it off with like a breakdown as towards the understanding of immigration, it being defined, and then we're going to go into the aspects of international immigration standards, and then finish it out with local regulations pertaining towards immigration within the US. And I'm going to try to remember all the notions that I added while going through the breakdown from off the top of my freaking mind throughout this portion. But honestly, I may just end up saving those for part 2, and I may just read through everything in part 1 and see how much I can breeze through, because I brought in like a bunch of freaking outside notions, and I hate re-recording them because it's like, when I do them, I try to bring back the exact same notions and add them to the same parts as I remember what I had stated before, and it's so tedious in itself. But you guys, I'm gonna bang the gavel, get this one started, and then hopefully we can get through the entire thing. If I can remember any notions that I added, I'll try to add them in there. But if not, we're just gonna breeze through this one and probably make it longer than the last recorded version, as I'll have more time to read through more of it without explaining any outside details to kind of like tie everything together. Immigration laws and regulations. So an immigrant is a person who leaves their home country to live permanently in a new country. So as opposed to, wondering, what is an immigrant? Is that somebody who's just, in our country illegally? What does it pertain towards? No, an immigrant is anyone who leaves their home country to live permanently in a new place, guys. So it's one of the notions where I didn't really, completely understand the basis of the word, but in doing the research into it, I was like, we've got to define it, we've got to, because again, I always do the research into the other aspects first, and they kind of like tie most of the things together, but then I was like, I want to have the actual breakdown for it to really explain to anybody who may like literally not know what the heck is going on, what it breaking means. And then in doing the little research portion of it, I got some great insight as towards more of the meaning behind it, as well as different standards and differences between words that pertain towards or are similar to those. So key differences in related words: immigrant vs emigrant with an E. An immigrant is someone exiting their home country. So when you leave your home country to move to a new place, you are an immigrant while you are leaving your home country, while an immigrant is the same person entering and arriving in the new destination country. So once you arrive or are entering the new destination country, you then become an immigrant. Immigrant vs migrant. A migrant moves from place to place, often for temporary work or seasonal jobs, whereas an immigrant specifically intends to settle down for the long term or permanently. Immigrant vs refugee. An immigrant usually chooses to move for work, family, or a better life, while a refugee is forced to flee war, violence, or danger to their lives. So as you guys know, the standard in our country, and I added in so much now that I'm like remembering in the beginning portion of this pertaining towards immigrants and the major debates that have been going on in the country, and then having the information that you can use throughout the beginning of this to really just understand it more, and then the final portions to understand the standards within the nation, and to further understand the key aspects that contribute to things that limit people kind of. Oh my gosh, one sec. I don't know what the heck that was. Probably like I was eating like a taco early, because I think it might have been an onion. Sorry, the yuckies, but yeah. All right, so for immigrants, the major freaking notion has been towards Latin Americans, being like it's like the major notion as they only speak Spanish. Are they freaking immigrants? Who is an immigrant? Who's not an immigrant? Do I call ICE about this? Do I report this? Do I report that? I remember like when I was this is like a side note, and I didn't add it in the last time, but when I was like let's see, during the beginning of my young adult years and the end of my teen years, I moved back to New York from California after I returned to California for like I would say like a month and a half-ish or so. And when I'd gotten back, I was just super freaking just sad. I was just not in the mood for any of the BS. I had left New York stressed beforehand and had gotten back, and I was like, finally back home with my family, but I just still wasn't like feeling like, in that same zen space that I had felt in like the years prior to that. So in the midst of, my mom was like, well, I've got a job that I can, help you get. I ended up working at this like pizzeria, but in the back of the pizzeria there were like a bunch of freaking Spanish people that worked there, and it was like an under the table type of job. So I was like really iffy on doing under the table types of jobs, but in the area that I was living in, they were like the major freaking jobs that were being offered by people. But my major thing was having a job that was like off the books where you're not collecting taxes for it. I was like, not only are there the freaking possible business repercussions where you could lose your job because they're breaking those laws and standards, but it's also like you can't freaking file it on your taxes later. It's basically showing as though you've made no freaking actual income. You're cashing these freaking checks, and it's like you just cash the checks in the freaking business, and you don't want the liability to come for you after. But in the back of the freaking restaurant there were all of these Spanish people, and I'm Spanish also, so my major notion was I'm a Spanish, citizen of America, but are these like, immigrants? Because they had only, a lot of them only spoke Spanish. Some spoke like Spanish and like partial English and stuff like that. And my major notion was, growing up in California, when I was like a little kid, I didn't know about immigration. I didn't, assume that anybody was ever an immigrant. And then as I grew and lived throughout the nation, it became like a big thing talked about everywhere. As we had Donald Trump going into office in the years prior, it was like a major thing talked about throughout the nation. Then he popped up and he was like, let's build a wall to control the immigration that's been going on and all this, and it just became a major freaking thing. I would say maybe like 3 years into his term or so, I had started this job, and it was like a major thing around the area. I lived in a like predominantly Caucasian area, and it was like a major talked about thing. So I was just in the area, and I was like it's just one of those things where it's like they're hiring people that they can get to freaking work under the table, that they can pay a lot cheaper wages to because it's because they're immigrants. And then I'm just like I'm comfortable. I was like I feel uncomfortable if I'm like working with those people back there, and they're not citizens and they're being paid less than a freaking regular wage, and they don't freaking speak English. Because it's one thing to freaking hear about it, it's another thing to actually be working in a place where people are actually being brought in, that are like working to freaking survive in another nation, hoping to freaking get by, get their citizenship and stuff like that from the wages that they earn. For them to literally just be like literal immigrants that can have like ICE called on them at any freaking moment, or have the place raided at any moment, and then have their freedom freaking taken away. And then it's a traumatic event that you go through, something traumatic to see those people go through, and then it's just like it's a slap in the face, because you're like, why is this like a reality that could possibly happen? So it really threw me off. But the other major notion for that aspect, I honestly to this day, I still hope that they weren't doing that, but you never really like could truly tell during the time. It was another one of those major notions as towards immigration, and when I was a lot younger and growing up, where they were always talking about finding Paco, and it's freaking, and Paco's just like a quote unquote, like it wasn't like Paco literally, but like trying to pick like a Spanish name that most people may freaking kind of get or know. Like I feel like Paco or Juan would be like one that most people would know, but finding somebody who's Spanish, sitting outside of a Home Depot that's like an immigrant or a migrant that you can hire for work and stuff like that. And it was like one of those major things that used to like worry me. I was like like it's just something where it's like you just find somebody that you could pay for really cheap labor, like for a rate that nobody else would freaking go for because it's not feasible, and then you just freaking like send them back out and then act as though they made enough of a wage to even freaking get by in our society, when even at the times it was like still paying them a low enough amount to not even be able to compete with the freaking wage freaking gaps throughout the nation with the pay that they were given. And now it's like in this modern day and age, if you're freaking doing that, you're basically just setting people up for failure. So it's just a major notion to be worrisome, aren't you guys? With that side note, though, I literally did get like way less far than I did the first time. I'm gonna conclude this one because the next portion takes like at least like I would say a minute and a half to get through, and I've got like maybe 40 seconds or so. So pop in for part 2, and I'll try to breeze through the next few sections. So again, we can finish this in maybe like 4 parts. That way it doesn't like turn into like a like I would say maybe 6-parter max, but I honestly doubt it. Most of the stuff kind of just flows together. Like I literally did the notes to literally cover major freaking aspects, and then I did these side notes to tie together any loose ends, and then again for my YouTubers, you'll be able to check everything out in the description to get a full breakdown and everything. And of course my sources will be cited and available in the notes section on the website also. Alright, so in probably every freaking one of these clips I'm going to look stressed, you guys. Alright, we are on part 2, but this is my literal 4th recording of this part. As stated in the first recording of part 1, I covered most of the like major, I got up to like page nearly 3. I've recorded this part 3 freaking times individually as opposed from that part, and each has freaking just glitched the heck out, or should I say 2 other times, and then this is number 3 now. Every time it literally just glitches out at the end. I literally hit the check mark, or I'll like tap the stop button, and it literally just does not like save it or go to the next portion of this where I can actually upload it. So I'm literally just gonna try to breeze through this. I keep like adding in the key notions for it, and it's so tedious because they're the key notions to like remember while explaining each of the aspects that is literally lost every freaking time. Like I feel like if it glitches out again, I'm probably just gonna have to add these in so I have like a scripted version of what I've been stating, as opposed to having to remember it and then tie in each of the key notions while reading it every freaking time. But bear with me. So in this portion, we're going to be touching base on the international migration laws, and then in the next portion, if I'm able to get through this like I have been for the past 2 recording sets, we'll be able to touch base on the U.S. immigration portion, and then conclude it with then I would say 1 more part or a part and a half. So let's see if we can breeze through those one more time. And for you, alright, my phone is like literally dying now, but for you guys, it's going to be your first time going through this with me. For me, it's going to be like my freaking like 3rd time reading through this individually, and my 4th time like in total. International migration law is an umbrella framework of rules, treaties, and principles that govern state responsibilities and individual rights. Key areas include international human rights laws, international refugee law, and state sovereignty. And in the notes section that I ended up researching, it gave a breakdown as towards exploring the International Organization for Migration site to get a more detailed overview on the overall umbrella framework for the international migration laws. Core legal frameworks include state sovereignty. Nations have the foundational right to control their borders, decide who enters, and regulate terms of stay or expulsion. Human rights laws. Universal protections apply to all people within a state's control regardless of their legal migration status. This is one of the notions. If it glitches out again, I'm literally just going to type it out because I literally add this in every time and then it glitches the freaking heck out. And this is the first one that I add in that's, outside info pertaining towards tying it together as an example point. So for immigrants and migrants moving to a new area, there is a notion of following the new laws of the land in which you are moving to. So you go from, one nation where you have these laws and regulations set to a new nation that may have different laws and regulations that pertain to its human rights. And you have to kind of abide by and work with the standards of the laws of the land. Now, the notions that I add to tie it all together pertains towards tourists. When we go to a new nation, there are still the governing factors of the land, such as, the currency systems, the laws and the regulations that we have to adhere by. When you pay for something, you can pay with the, money of your land typically, or you use your cards, and it's like, it's converted and stuff like that. But it's the standards of the land overall that you have to adhere to, except for in situations such as, when we had the wars in the Middle East over the past year or so, and there were the high alert notions where we advised a bunch of our citizens to go towards safe areas such as the embassy, so that they could avoid being, so they can avoid being persecuted against during, the times of the war, the uncertainty, to be caught in the midst of all the mayhem, and to avoid, being, in danger overall within these areas. So you get to kind of go to a safe zone where you're with people of your nation, where there's more of that regulation and that standard, that protectorate, where you also kind of get to have that like-minded vibe again with the people of your nation, as opposed to, being somebody within a foreign land that's, working with the people of the land, but, not really having that major basis of, being from there and stuff like that. But with the uncertainties and everything that was taking place before, it was more so as a protectorate of, protecting the lives of our citizens, but in other notions of, going to that safe common grounds area within a foreign nation. Refugee law, governed heavily by the 1951 Refugee Convention, protecting individuals from being returned to a place where they face persecution, non-refoulement. And in this next section, I've got a few little reference points that, again, if they are not saved in this freaking final this final recorded portion, literally just gonna end up typing them out. Let's see. Major enforcement principles: non-refoulement, banning countries from expelling or returning persons to territories where their lives or freedoms are threatened. This one is a notion towards, refugees who have come to our nation from other nations, where, we're not going to return them to their home nations where they are persecuted against, where their lives were endangered. Once you're here, you're safe and you're protected here. And the reference that I made for this one pertained towards, that best friend's parent who, helped to provide you with a safe place during, like, your teenage years, where you have, like, domestic or verbal violence and abuse taking place in your home, or that best friend, parent, or family member, or anyone else who, what's that helping factor in keeping you away from a domestic partner, where you in an abusive or a verbally or physically abusive relationship with your partner. They were like, this is going to be a safe place where you will be safe from that unstable environment, and we will not return you to that because you are in a safe place, and we do not want you to be in any type of situation where your life's in danger again. Global governance, non-binding frameworks like the UN Migration Network guide safe and orderly, safe cooperation. Now, to touch base on that notion, because I was like, let's freaking gain some insight as to the UN Migration Network, I added that into the next portion, and also when we get to the memberships portion, it's a tad lengthy and wordy because I literally did some research into all the acronyms that were mentioned, so that way we would have more insight as towards all of the organizations involved within it, and also I kind of was able to find the breakdowns as towards the formation years for a bunch of them. So we'll go through this next portion. Fingers crossed that everything works. If you guys are watching this one, it worked and the video finally went through. Bear with me, and then after this we're going to pause it because we then start to go into the U.S. immigration policies and standards. The United Nations Network on Migration is a system-wide UN mechanism established to ensure effective, timely, and coordinated support to countries in implementing the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration, GCM. It is coordinated by the International Organization for Migration, IOM. Core purpose and structure. Primary mission: help states govern migration safely and humanely while protecting migrant rights. Leadership: coordinated and hosted as a secretariat by the IOM. And again, the IOM was the International Organization for Immigration. The memberships portion, and this is what I mentioned to you guys before, where I did the insight as towards going beyond the acronyms, so that you can also get the names of each of the organizations as well as the acronyms that pertain towards it, and the formation years for most except for the WHO, which was mentioned in the final portion, because I was like, everybody knows the WHO now after the pandemic. So It comprises dozens of UN entities, including an executive committee with members like the United Nations Children's Fund, an agency of the United Nations founded on December 11, 1946, the UNICEF. The International Labor Organization, the ILO, is a United Nations agency that sets global labor standards, promotes worker rights, and improves safe working conditions worldwide. Founded in October of 1919 and headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland, the UNHCR, also known as the UN Refugee Agency, is a United Nations organization dedicated to saving lives, protecting rights, and building a better future for refugees, forcibly displaced communities, and stateless people. And the World Health Organization, WHO, all working together on mobility issues to help with migration standards throughout the world. Alright, you guys, got like maybe around like 20 seconds or so now. Going to conclude this portion, and as stated, the next will include U.S. immigration policies, and for anything that is mentioned throughout this portion that you want more insight towards, it will be in the description, and the notes portion can be found on the website also. See you in the next one. Alright, you guys, we have gotten to U.S. immigration policies. I just switched over to my Samsung too, so with any luck, there won't be any recording errors. The only thing that I was worried about was like looking completely different on the freaking camera, because 9 times out of 10 when I switch over from my iPhone to my Android tends to try to make me look ugly, so I was very worried, but so far we're doing good. The U.S. immigration policy is governed primarily by the Immigration and Nationality Act, the INA, which controls permanent legal immigration, temporary visas, and refugee admissions. Official rules and case updates are managed through the USCIS Laws and Policy portal. Key legal categories, and this is going to be a breakdown of what I was telling you about, and like I believe the last portion and the first portion also, pertaining towards the standards of, acceptable U.S. laws and regulations for immigration and migration. When I did the initial first portion of it, I did like a reference towards, with the major notion of immigration within our country pertaining towards, Latin Americans. There was a major notion of, why does Abuelito get to freaking come here from another nation and just freaking, just live here now and all this other stuff, or like, why does mama get to come? Why does their mama get to come from another freaking nation that just freaking live here and just become a citizen now? Like, is it just that easy and stuff like that? But there are laws and regulations that have been set to cover those aspects for years, and most people follow and abide by those standards to protect their family members from aspects such as deportation. That way they can come to a safe nation or be closer to family and friends and come for work standards in a place while following the standards of the laws and regulations of the land. Family-based immigration allows U.S. citizens, this is going to be the major notion that I want you all to know, so when you talk to anybody and they're like, yeah, but what about, their freaking, grandparents or their parents that are here from another nation, like, illegally, how can they just freaking just stay here? This one's going to cover that aspect, so now you know the answer to it, and you can educate others as towards it also. And then if you don't want to reference and show them my video, you can also reference towards the notes section, save it to your own phone, or pull up the website's breakdowns pertaining towards the information, which can be found in our sources cited section, or you can Google the notion now that you will know it. Family-based immigration allows U.S. citizens and lawful permanent residents to bring specific family members to the country. Immediate relatives of citizens face no annual cap. So this is going to be that protectorate clause that pertains toward bringing family members from another nation to our nation to then be citizens protected by the basis of their family members. Employment-based immigration provides permanent and temporary pathways for foreign workers based on job skills and labor market needs. So if you're a skilled worker, you can come to the area and help us out and, making sure that we manage that basis of, not that employee retention that we've been having for years, and assist with that while bringing those skills to the table, that meeting that labor need within our economy. It can add towards you having a permanent citizenship or a temporary citizenship to pop in for work as either a migrant popping in for work or as an employment based immigrant popping in for work to assist and just be a lifesaver within the nation. Humanitarian protection grants asylum or refugee status to individuals fleeing persecution. This one's going to be in reference towards the refugee notion earlier, based on race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Enforcement and processing agency oversight managed by federal bodies including U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. This one's going to be the one where you guys are going to be like, oh my gosh, I hate that freaking organization, but they're a major notion in the enforcement. And as you guys hear the word enforcement, you guys already know what's coming for this one. If you guys are like, what's it going to be? What's going to be the, just gets my nerves. It's the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. They're not coming for your mama and your papa because, they came here legally and they were your family members that you brought from another nation. Their original job is to literally enforce, the standards of immigration policies and customs standards and so many other aspects, but with the constant freaking, draw in for more people to work within the agency, we will get those freaking racists that will go for the job. We will get those hotheads that are ready to be, trigger happy, and it's going to, cause people to, look at the overall agency like, is the credibility of the agency shot? Are the standards of the nation shot? But if you're calling, the standards of the nation into question, you're calling the standards of your way of life and your home into question, and it's the nation that, is your home. It's your origin of birth. Even if you decide to leave the nation, it's still the nation that you came from. You're still the embodiment of the nation. So overall, it's all about looking at the aspects that need to be fixed upon within each of the organizations, but also understanding the importance of each agency as a whole as well. And Customs and Border Protection, the CBP. And you guys always do your own research into each of these agencies. Learn their standards in which what they do actually regulate, what are their jurisdictions, what are their laws and regulations. So if you do ever happen to go through anything with any of these agencies and you're like, that was against my rights, I was unconstitutional, my family members were freaking, their lives were taken, you can take legal action. You can hold government bodies accountable for things that go against your human and civil freaking rights. So always be mindful of that also. We don't live in a nation where you're not able to speak up and get, the entitled protectorates that you were granted at birth. So always utilize those. Let's see, guys. Alright, so the Immigration and Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, of 1952 is the foundation. This one I did a tap bit of research as we referenced towards it, and I believe in the beginning of the U.S. immigration policy, when it was the U.S. immigration policy is governed primarily by the Immigration and Nationality Act, the INA. It's let me not bring the INA into this without giving you guys a tad more information as towards what it actually is. And I believe this concludes it, so look at us doing it in 3 parts. The Immigration and Nationality Act, INA of 1952, is the foundational federal statute governing immigration, temporary admission, naturalization, and citizenship in the United States. It is codified under Title 8 of the United States Code, 8 U.S.C. 1101 et sec. It's SEQ et sec. Court structure and purpose. Codification. Collected and organized multiple fragmented immigration and naturalization laws into a single unified text. So this is the codification breakdown of keeping everything within an organized basis to be viewed and reflected upon later. Statutory location, maintained in reference via Title 8 of the U.S. Code or direct INA section numbers. Examples include the INA section 208 for asylum. Administration enforced and managed through agencies like the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. Key provisions include visas and entry, and this I'm going to kind of speed through you guys. We have like a minute and a half left, and I want to make sure we finish this off with everything included in there so we don't have to do that brief little bit for part 4. Visas and entry establish clear definitions and paths for permanent resident status, immigrants, and temporary stays, non-immigrants like students and workers. Inadmissibility and removal sets the legal grounds for why a person can be denied entry, detained, or deported, including criminal history and severe threats to, the people of the land, national security, others around them, so many other major aspects. Inadmissibility and removal. So Refugees and Asylum provides mechanisms for annual refugee admissions and individual asylum claims. Major amendments, and I've got like 40 seconds left, you guys, bear with me. 1942 original Migrant Walter Act. If I butcher the names, actually I'm not even gonna breeze through it. I'm gonna literally just do the major amendments for part 4 because I'm literally trying to speed through them, and I'm gonna probably butcher the names trying to speed through them. I'm Migrant Walter Act, and I'm literally, if I breeze through each of them, I'm probably gonna butcher the names, get through the entire breakdowns of it, but I want to make sure you guys get the information that you guys need. So part 4 is going to include the final notions of major amendments, which will probably only be total to maybe a minute to 2 minutes. See you guys in the final portion, and I hope this helped you guys gain more insight as to immigration laws and standards. Alright, you guys, we are finally at the final freaking portion for this. So, major amendments for 1952, and these are pertaining towards the INA, the Immigration and Nationality Act, the INA of 1952. These are the amendments that have been made throughout the years. In 1952, the original was the McCarran-Walter Act, which unified laws and ended some racial bans on naturalization while keeping national origin quotas. 1965 amendments, Hart-Celler Act, abolished the old national origins quota system, favoring family reunification and skilled labor. Subsequent updates, frequently updated by Congress to address modern border security, employment rules, and humanitarian protections. Alright, you guys, I hope this literally helped you to gain a lot of insight pertaining towards immigration laws, regulations, and standards. So that way, again, while talking to anybody pertaining towards the laws of the land, pertaining towards immigration laws, regulations, and standards, or international standards, you're able to have that notion to really understand what are the major things that tie into all of that, what are the major fact points to touch base upon in a disagreement, a debate, or in just sharing the ideals of what these standards pertain towards. As stated before, for my YouTubers, the information can be found down in the description. For my TikTokers, you guys go check it out on YouTube, or you guys can head over to the DKH Legal Aid website, download my notes portion that is going to pertain towards the immigration laws and regulations, as well as the sources cited to find a lot of the key information that is referenced towards also. And I've stated, you guys, I typically read through the breakdowns that I actually have in my notes section, so you can also find most of the major notions that I've touched base upon outside of the notions that are literally just coming straight from my mind while reading through these. That way you can literally touch base upon any notion that you were kind of iffy on, that you were I kind of think I heard that one, but I might not have heard it. I don't want to keep replaying it over and over again. I'm not sure about that aspect. Let me see if it's easier for me to actually read it myself. You can read through it, you can gain the insight and the info, and then also do your research into the key aspects. There will be a lot of key notions that will be added in there. If you're reading through it and you don't know it, now you can copy and paste it into your browser and gain more insight yourself as well. And if you have any other amazing topics, send them over to me and I'll cover them. As you guys know, most of the videos will be available on the DKH Legal Aid TikTok and YouTube account later. I'm working on actually creating a nice, decent bit of, video coverage to actually upload over to the page. They're currently all being featured on my main YouTube account, but I'll be transferring them over to the Legal Aid account. That way, there's the basis of the typical videos that I upload to my main account and the legal aspects that you can find covering DKH Legal Aid info and legal parameters. I love you guys. Best of luck. Hope this information helped. Stay tuned because I literally just went through my notes section on the final notions of topics that I had hidden in my notes section that I hadn't gone through yet. So immigration laws happen to be the last one that I didn't finish while going through everything. We've also got a video coming on minimum wage laws and regulations. That isn't even something that ties together the recent notion of upping the minimum wage. It just covers the overall standards starting from the federal level and throughout the nation. We've also got one that's going to touch base upon international banking laws and one for same-sex marriage. I always plan to get that one out during June for Pride Month. It always gets so busy that I never end up freaking actually getting it out there. When I went to go pull it up this time for this year, I was like going to check and make sure that I actually had done the notes section for it. I think I ended up adding in like a few final notions, but I don't think I actually finished it. So I finally got it finished. That one's going to be hopefully up within I would say the next month or so, depending on how busy it gets. As you guys know, I have the court cases starting in the beginning of August, and then I'm going to see if I want to freaking start a few other court cases. And then aside from that, there are the ongoing cases that I'm working on. I'm trying to network with other freaking legal business owners and representatives. And on top of that, I've been popping into freaking stores lately again. I've been having some very interesting moments to say the least, but I always try to make sure I kind of tie everything together while doing all of the freaking odd and end things. So it's managing things going on at home, giving my puppy its love and attention, taking care of my health with things such as my freaking wrist guard. So happy that my doctor put in the order for this because I ended up making a DIY one that helped a decent bit, but this has been really great for limiting the mobility because the DIY one that I made helped a lot with limiting me really messing with the nerves in my thumb, and this one has helped a lot with literally helping so that I don't move my thumb too much, that my hand isn't moving too much in out of the ordinary ways that cause me to then jam my thumb, which sends a pain through my freaking entire arm. And overall I'm feeling good, so I can move my thumb a lot more without my wrist guard as opposed to being in pain all the time and having it literally, I think it took maybe my typical amount would be one pain pill in the beginning of the day to help with any pain that may happen throughout the day, and then just kind of regulate myself. As I've been having the thumb pain lately, it's been maybe I would say a minimum, because I think my max that I can take throughout the day is up to 3 tablets a day. So I've been taking literally 3 tablets throughout the day, one during the beginning of the day, and then one during the midst of the day, and then one before bed. And if I have work, it's one before work, one after work, and then if I'm up for up to maybe 4 or 5 hours after work or so, I'll take another one. And then if not, I tend to take one during the middle of the night after I wake up from my mid night nap-ish or so, and then I head back to bed. And then it's I usually sleep for a decent bit enough time before work to literally take my next one. It's been tedious, but you guys wish me luck on my recovery with those and on the court cases coming up. Stay tuned for the new videos. I love you guys. I hope your summers have been exceptional and fun so far. I hope you guys are getting out there doing fun things, enjoying yourselves, working your freaking butts off. For all my freaking summer viewers that are probably still freaking in school out there, if I have any out there that are watching this, I hope you guys are living your best life, keeping your freaking grades up, enjoying being young, and looking forward to an amazing future throughout the nation and throughout the world in general. I love all of you guys tuning in from all around the world. Thanks for being amazing viewers, for networking with me, and for just being exceptional in yourselves. That's my favorite part, you guys, using my gavel that I was so freaking just working on. I've added it to my card, and I think within a few months I finally crossed it off my list and gotten it. I love it so much. I literally have loved doing the legal videos with this in them. So I'm gonna conclude this, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Love you. Have an awesome summer. Keep me posted on all the fun stuff.